But what the Democratic Party wanted to do then was have one thing, and that was control. Control the mind, because Lyndon B. Johnson said it himself. If you get them on welfare, you got to vote for life.
Welcome to Indie Thinker with Reed Uberman. You're about to make the jump from the dishonest mainstream media into free and independent thought from key thought leaders on the subjects of culture, causes, politics, and faith. Welcome to Indie Thinker with Reed Uberman. I'm very excited to have a businessman, a adopted son of a great family, and a political candidate for the 5th District of Tennessee here in the house today, Quincy McKnight. What's up, Quincy? Thanks for being with us, man.
Thanks, Reed.
Yeah, already from at least the initial conversation, I can tell we're going to talk about some interesting, fun stuff today. So I'm excited to be able to speak with a straight shooter. It's really hard to find in the political world, man.
Hey, I tell you all, that's why it's kind of like buying a car, man. You got to know what you're buying.
Yeah.
And
there's used car salesmen everywhere. So
there are a whole lot of used car salesmen out here. So.
Well, I like to start with kind of a softball question, so and keep it light, and then we'll dig into the weeds. So first question is, or the first thing that we'll talk about is race and politics, just to keep it light.
Yeah.
So, man, I really want to get into your personal story, but something's just really been agitating me, to be totally honest with you, but also just really interesting to see the way the left, as they started to start to lose races, especially with what just happened in Virginia, and the conversation about race just gets more and more interesting. So I'm just wondering, and we'll wade in as far as you want to, specifically with what happened in Virginia and with Winsome Sears' win, and then some of the way Joy Reid responded to it on MSNBC and calling it white supremacy that she won, and then even probably prior to that with Larry Elder, how he's the black face of white supremacy, which if a Republican had said that, that would seem like a racial epithet.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, man, kind of like what your personal experience is, because you're a Republican congressional candidate.
Yeah.
You're a black man, obviously. The camera is not deceiving. You identify as a black man.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just wondering what your experience is and what you think about what's going on with the media and how they've just lost their mind when it comes to like black Republicans and black conservatives, because Winsome Sears is a strong black woman. She seems to be, a solid, great candidate, and under any, normal circumstance, you would think that they would celebrate that, but they just cannot bring themselves to celebrate a strong, powerful black woman when she might, conflict with their narrative. So I'm just interested in your kind of feedback about all of that.
Yeah. So first of all, I will say that Mrs. Sears is a great woman. I've personally met her. I've spent time with her this whole year as she was campaigning.
Oh, okay, cool.
So her and Pastor E.W. Jackson, we were able to get rather close in seeing how important that her race is for the Virginia area. So I will say that start off. Secondly, dealing with the media and how they're controlling, they want to control the race narrative. Yeah. Because if you notice, very, 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 very few blacks are making it a deal that Winsome Sears won.
Yeah.
More of them actually are happy. You can't go off, and nor should white America or any part of America really be going off of a Joy Reid.
Yeah. But that's so crazy, though, I think, is just that you can no longer trust the media. That's still something that's still, maybe it's been like that for a while, but something that's kind of on our radar now, more so than ever before, is still kind of startling that you just cannot trust anything they say. No,
you can't. And if anything, trust them, then verify. It's like that old saying. But anything that Joy reads right now, you got a lot of people that are furious, they're frustrated because they know that the Democratic Party their days are numbered.
Yeah, they're
and so at this point, they're reaching below the belt. Yeah. They're and even far white left liberal media they're saying, well, hey, if Black America's not going to talk, we're going to talk for you.
Yeah.
And no one asked them to do that, And so all of a sudden they look in the mirror, they think they're black. So all of a sudden that gives you the right to talk for us.
I know there's probably more you could say about that, so please feel free to wade in further. But are you offended by the fact that even that sentiment that you just said, that they would treat black people as monolithic? That there is one singular black voice?
Yeah. Because like right now in America, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on.
Right.
Right now, we need leadership in this country. We're as a Christian, we are going down a slippery slope very fast because we don't have any real leadership, people that want to live on real values, traditional values that, our parents taught us coming up. So because we get away from our values, we have no leadership in America. And the Democratic Party right now, and even some of the Republicans that I've, had to meet, they don't live off of true values either. I like people that are conservative. Yeah. I like people that are common sense people that make sense. How can we make this better? Yeah. Let's sit down, let's reason together, let's talk about this stuff, because none of this stuff is going to get any better as long as you got people on MSNBCs and the CNNs and then you've got people on Fox and whatever other networks are constantly want to talk about race. Because does race exist in America? Of course it does. Sure. Does racism exist? Of course it does. It's existed since the beginning of time. Right. And it's not going to go anywhere. Because, I'm not going to go super spiritual here for a moment, but the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
So we need to stop acting like this stuff is just brand new, because there are some people out here that want to pretend that race or racism does not exist. Okay? They are truly preaching that right now. And they call themselves conservatives, without calling people's names. They're walking around here. America is great. It's the greatest country in the world. Yes, I totally believe that. Sure. America's a great place to live and to be. But at the same time,
we don't ignore reality.
You cannot ignore the past, the present, nor the future. Yeah. So we as Americans sitting in our churches every Sunday, and as you guys know, Sunday is the most segregated day of the week. So until we start to really, truly, let's just talk about it and move on. Let's deal with it, because it's not saying it. And it's like the CRT thing. People want to bring that up. It was a big issue all summer long, and still is to some degree. I'm not for CRT. I think it should have stayed in the collegiate levels of where it belonged. Yeah. Because of maturity purposes only. I don't think that it was something that should have been taught in our elementary schools. So I'm a father of 4, so it's like, no, I wouldn't dare teach that to my children, because racism is taught. It's taught. And right now, a lot of the parents that are pushing these racist agendas, they're teaching our children to have divide and these walls up. Yeah. Amongst their peers, amongst themselves. I don't care what they say, because it's just so it's very, very relevant today that we have to do things a certain way now.
Yeah, I think that's so good, and maybe some of what I'm glad to see a strong man and a strong Christian man, just quite frankly, regardless of race, to stand up and run in the congressional district that you're running in, quite frankly, because I think ultimately what we're experiencing, I have a personal belief, is not really a racial reckoning. I think what we're seeing is, we're seeing a post-Christian America that's trying to reckon with truth. And so now we have this really dysfunctional relationship with reality. And this is why two people can look at the same exact evidence and come with two totally different opinions about what's being said there. And I think this is where we get the kind of Winsome Sears thing in the play, is that the media can just sit there and lie to your face because we have a dysfunctional relationship with the truth. And I can't help but wonder if that's because we have a dysfunctional relationship with God.
Oh, yeah.
And that we don't have any reference to reality, to objective truth, when we've gotten rid of the one who is truth.
Well, see, and that's the thing. We have candidates out here right now, and not just media, but we have candidates and leaders in our great state of Tennessee, who can say they are believers of God, but their politics don't match it.
Yeah.
Contradictory scripture. It's a tree is known by the fruit it bears. So it's kind of like this fruit that some of these people are showing out here. We know that's
don't get too scriptural, get in trouble.
Yeah, I know it. Well, I don't care, because I'm always gonna have God first. So I'm just that way. So that's why we have to be very careful on who we do elect and who we do support, because we are at a time where we can't go backwards because a lot, just like the left can sell fear tickets, some of our right people are selling fear tickets as well.
Yep. Yeah, this is what I love about you from what I can tell already, man, is that I was doing a video earlier today and I made the statement that the vast majority of people do not vote for people. They vote against the other person.
Yeah.
I can't remember a single election in my life. No, it could just be me.
Yeah.
A single election in my life where I actually was like, oh, yes, I'm going to vote for this guy. It was almost always like 2016, which is I still think Democrats don't get.
Yeah.
It's like you put up the worst candidate possible with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And so you left us with Donald Trump. It's kind of the way I viewed it. Is just and they still like Russiagate and all this stuff, and I'm just like, God, you don't understand. The worst person ever, and of course she was going to lose, and so that's typically the way I think elections go. Is you're voting against the other person not getting in office.
Yeah.
And so people like accuse Christians of how could you vote for Donald Trump? Well, we didn't vote for him because he was a pillar of virtue by and large.
No.
We voted for him because he wasn't Hillary Clinton. But it is good when you can vote for somebody because they have the moral standing, the ethical framework.
Well,
we don't want like a Christian America per se where everybody in elected office is Christians. We want, the kind of diversity melting pot and stuff. But when somebody like you comes along and you actually care about the truth, you care about being honest, it's always good to be able to have that person to vote for.
Well, yeah, Trump, I'll be honest with you, Trump set the trend from the time he started running, and then
he set a bunch of them.
Yes, he did set a bunch of trends. I will say that 2018 was when I became a believer in Trump.
Yeah.
Prior to then, I was very, very skeptical because
I'd say that's
of
true with me too.
Yeah, because of his past.
Yeah.
That's just be very honest. Didn't know which Trump we were going to get, you know?
Yeah.
But as I was seeing his policies of what he was truly protecting America and our borders, see, that's what's important to me is can my children and my children's children have a future in America? And so when he started to talk about border protection and all these things, he started to set a trend. And with him being a businessman on top of it, and personally, I think business people make the best politicians.
I agree 100%. We'll dig into your business past a little bit too.
Yeah. So, but when I saw that 24.6 of African American men voted for Trump this time, that resonated with me. But it should be resonating across this whole country. And the reason why is because the black man, for example, has been torn and taken away from the family, from the essence of the family.
Yeah.
After 1960.
Do you want to say why? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I can tell you exactly why. Because this all started in 1964 with the Welfare Act.
Yeah.
And if people don't know your history on this, you better look it up and read it and understand why our country is where it's at now. It's because of our predecessors.
And let me just insert this real quick, and you tell me, you fact check me real quick. So ultimately what happened with that Welfare Act is it incentivized fatherlessness, especially specifically in the black communities, which were still reeling from civil rights and from being disenfranchised in America, not having some of the same financial ability. So because they tended toward the poorer spectrum, they were candidates for welfare, but it incentivized fatherlessness because you could not have two people in the home that were making an income that could truly subsist in that family. So ultimately what they were doing is, so it incentivized only having one parent in the home because then you have less income and you actually can qualify for welfare and you can get benefits from the government.
Well, not just that, but what the Democratic Party wanted to do then was have one thing, and that was control. Control the mind, because Lyndon B. Johnson said it himself.
Yeah.
If you get them on welfare, you got to vote for life.
Yeah.
And that was a mindset. And he was able to get that mindset. The Democrats across this whole country were able to instill that into black women's minds to where at that time, if this black man comes around in that family, your benefits are cut off.
Yep, that's right.
And so I have issues with that, and that's why one of the first things I want to do when I get into Congress is go back and undo that 1964 Welfare Act.
Wow.
Because it's not good. It's not good for our country. It's not good for our future. And quite frankly, generational healing has not yet even occurred because of those types of things. And so now the black man is just now getting to the point, and because of Trump, I believe, and this is just my opinion, okay, the black man is rising to a place of a lot more confidence.
Yeah.
Starting more businesses, remaining in strong of who they are, taking care of their children, wanting to be the best father in the world. All these types of things, they are moving to be.
Yeah.
And Trump proved that, hey, I can just be the person I need to be. Screw what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
I need to do what's right. Because we all know, and our ancestors know, my grandparents, everybody, we were all Republicans prior to all that anyway.
Yeah.
So these values, the values that our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers that taught us these things, the values hadn't changed.
Yeah.
The values have always remained the same.
See, I think that's really interesting, Quincy, is that I think by and large, and again, I don't want to come off as treating, but I'm just going to make a generality here. The black community lives Republican, but they preach Democrat.
Yeah, well, I won't say they preach Democrat. It's just that it's kind of like, okay, you got to scale a balance here of what's best for me now and what's best for me later.
Yeah.
Most families and most black families live check to check.
Yeah.
Right? So the now is what's more important to the single moms or to the families that are living income to income, week to week.
That's good.
So they have to focus on what's best for make sure they take care of their families.
Yep.
I can't harp on that enough because that's so important. Well, we got to see the values.
Yeah.
When it comes to the churches in our communities and things like that, we do not like to get away from the word. First time things like that happens, it causes divide. It causes too much stuff. And as you and I both know, society is trying to make you accept everything that the left wants to throw down your throat now. Yeah. And I have nothing against the LGBTQ people or the communities or any of that, because some of my dear friends, choose to live that way.
Sure.
And that's okay. I never judge them. That's between them and God, but forcing certain social issues and pushing them down our throats, we don't stand for that.
Yeah. And we're talking common sense stuff now, right? Boys using girls' bathrooms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because then that's where the white liberal media has made it look like it's racism. It's this, it's that. Because they only want to show clips and videos around this country that are relative to their wrongful points.
All right, so we could dwell on any of those things, but I think that's also really great, man. And I hear your heart kind of peering through some of that stuff. So let's get to your heart. Let's talk a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested to talk about your business past, just because I believe that I'm really cynical about people going into public office and then becoming enriched by that, and I think that that's a really bad motivator.
It is.
So we'll talk about that, but before, let's roll the tape way back and let's talk about you in the womb.
Yeah.
You why you're pro-life and kind of the story with how you came into the world. So let's talk about your mom and her decision to give you up for adoption.
Sure. So if you want me to go into the quick story, I'll tell you the 2-minute version of it really quick. And to our listeners,
share whatever you want.
Yeah, to our listeners out there. So I was adopted at the age of 10 into a great old elderly black family. Family of girls, the only boy.
Okay.
So,
and your dad was a Marine.
Yes, he was Army.
Okay,
he was in the Army. Yeah, he was a disabled veteran. But prior to 1976 in Murfreesboro, and I was told this story at 34, by the way.
Wow. So wait, you didn't know until 34?
I didn't know the details of things.
Okay.
Until then, until my mother actually shared the information with me. But it was in a dry cleaners one day, man, and my mama was going into a dry cleaners. She was crying.
This is your biological mom?
Yes, biological. She was walking into a dry cleaners upset, crying, and she was going into the dry cleaners, and a elderly black gentleman was coming out. And he stopped her and was like, "Hey, is everything okay with you?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She tried to keep walking, and he stopped her and was like, "Hey, can I pray for you?" Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Well, I'm Catholic, so you can pray for me, but So anyway, he prayed for her, and they went on about their way. Well, she went and sat back and down in her car for a whole hour, and she was crying because she was trying to decide about aborting me or not. I am a product of I'm a love child. that came from adultery, out of an adulterous situation. So that's why she was contemplating the abortion piece on me as I was in the womb. So she had to go back home and tell her husband that, hey, I'm pregnant by a black man.
What a brave woman.
Yeah. And they're Italian, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you know anything about their culture, it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, she told him, told the family. They got divorced, of course. She had me. My grandmother took care of me for the first 3 months. And then I went to live in several homes in the foster system for the remaining time. My first Christmas that I had got adopted, they asked me what did I want for Christmas for the first time, and I was like, I don't know. I wasn't used to getting anything, so I didn't know how to answer that question, Yeah. And so from that standpoint on, I was like, well, I want to meet my mother, and so they found her. So Christmas morning, she came along with my grandmother. And so we're sitting on the couch beside each other, looking at each other, grinning from ear to ear, up and down. And within 2 minutes, my adoptive father walks into the room on his walkers, and he sits in his normal chair. And he just got down on his knees. He starts crying, pointing at my mother. And then my adoptive mom was looking at him like, what's wrong with you? Is everything okay? And he pointed at my mother and said, you're the same woman I prayed for at the dry cleaners.
Wow. That's insane.
So the biggest thing is, with that, I didn't know what the heck was going on during that time, because I just know some tears were being shed, and they were, just, having a moment there. They were having a moment. And so at the age of 34, when my mother was actually telling me the situation and the meaning of all this, that's when I started to realize purpose. That's when I started to realize I understand why I have gone through so much.
Yeah.
From being a student in school to being a dad, to being a husband, to being all these things, and the low places that I've been, to the high places I've been, the ups and downs, the failures that come along with it, with life. You now understand things, because it's like, man, God saved me.
Yeah. God
saved me in the womb. He saved me through prayer. He saved me through, by my mom being obedient and following that spirit that's in her. And that's why today I tell her, don't ever feel bad about, things, because we didn't get to grow up. She didn't get to raise me. So we go through things. And then she got out there on drugs and things like that, and had to, go through a lot with her over the years. So we're just now rekindling our relationship to a degree of well, you can actually talk real with your mom, so it's been I've been very grateful, but also it's been a humbling experience.
I bet.
To even sit back and think about these things of life and how important it is to us. So that's why I'm pro-life. That's why I
how could you not be after that, right?
Under no circumstance do I believe an abortion should take place. I've been asked this question on the campaign trail a lot. They're like, even at a rape, because it all starts when it happens, when it's conceived.
And then why blame the baby for the...
you can't blame the child, because you never know. God has a purpose for every one of us in our lives, man.
See, that story is so powerful to explain. I mean, you're basically that walking story we used to tell everybody. What if one day he becomes president? So I was like, now you're a senatorial candidate and congressional candidate, and doing all sorts of other great things. And so I'm just thinking to myself, like, maybe it's because we don't understand providence that we don't really understand even among Christians, man. Because I've really interacted a lot lately with Christians that kind of lean more left. And they're saying, like, well, I believe in being pro-life, but I think a woman should have her choice. And it's just like, well, then if that's true, then what you don't believe, you can't argue that you actually believe that baby inside of that womb is providential. Because if so, then then you can't just exterminate. You can't just get rid of it,
Yeah.
regardless of the platitudes you put behind it. That's a baby that has a purpose that God knows in the womb.
Oh yeah, and plus that I think too that's a part of our faith. How much faith? Like, I know it's cliche to say always have faith in God.
Yeah.
But that actually is pretty deep when you think about it, because that means you operate every single day on every moment of your life on. You don't, like with me, I don't worry about anything. I've come to the conclusion in my life now where I don't worry.
Yeah.
Because why? I've totally learned through hard knocks to put my faith in God.
Yeah.
And because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I just got to be ready for whatever's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nowadays things don't surprise me.
Okay.
What politicians, what our president's doing, what all this stuff, none of this stuff surprises me anymore about anything. It's just, oh, okay, well, let's put a plan together. Let's get a solution.
Figure out what to do about it.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things right now is what I don't like about what's happening in America. And this is just even going on to our living rooms, to our coffee tables, and to our dining tables at home. We're quick to sit around and talk about problems constantly. I wish this, and the left is this, the left is this, the right is this, the right is this. Why can't we just come up with some solutions instead of talking about the problems all the time? Because as a business owner, imagine if I sat around focused on our problems all the time. We wouldn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
No business is successful focusing on your problems all the time.
No way. Yeah.
And so what makes it any different for our country and our politicians and the House and the Senate? What makes it any different sitting around focusing on problems all the time?
So let's talk about that for a minute. So let's talk about your business past, because I really do agree with you. I think that we saw this in Donald Trump. I know there are people who disagree, but that's okay. They're entitled to be wrong. But I really think that one of the things that made him an effective politician was because he was an effective businessman, because he was a politician. Now, there's two things that I have to say about that. One of them is that I really am concerned about the motivation behind people who are looking towards public office to enrich themselves.
Of course.
So, like when these politicians get up and they say, well, I'm going to make sacrifices because I can afford to do so. It's like, yeah, but the people that voted for you may not be able to make those sacrifices, because those people actually voted for you and put you in office, and now you're worth millions of dollars. So I worry about the motivation, but then beyond that, I also worry about the experiential side of things.
Yeah.
I think running a business gives you such crucial experience, like what you just said with problem solving.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot run a successful business and constantly field problems. You have to come up with solutions.
That's right.
And it's just like, dude, I almost wonder if these guys are paid to wallow in problems, like up at the Capitol, because they seem to come up with a lot of issues to fight about, but not really anything to actually solve anything.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just part of the ineffectiveness of our government, and it's maybe built that way because there's checks and balances, and so the government's not supposed to be too powerful. But also, it would be nice to actually believe that our politicians are really serious about something, and they really want to see things get done. So, how has your business experience? Well, let's roll the tape back even a little bit. What is your experience as a businessman?
Well, I'm in the payment processing world, so a fintech space. We are a company, Covenant Pay Partners. We're headquartered in Nashville.
Okay.
I've been in this realm for 22 and a half years. So I'm considered a veteran in this space, okay? So we get to see the control and the outflow of money in and out of businesses. And part of my job, I started the organization, but I have a president now that runs the company. And my job is to maintain relationships, our strategic partnerships, and make sure the lights stay on, and making sure that,
and I want to to mention this. So you started it.
Yeah.
And then it grew to a multi-million-dollar company.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're processing about $1.2 billion a year in payments around the globe. And that's due to some very great partnerships that we've built over the years, relationships that we've garnered. So, and that's why it's so important to understand that business and politics mixes, because the same way of running a business, I figure you need to run the country the same way. And I think that's why I related to Trump so much, was because of his business vernaculars, his business protocol of handling things. It was uncommon. It was, to some people, people couldn't get along with that. They didn't see that. They don't see the importance of running this country almost like a business. Just because of the problems that you have to deal with. Because as a business owner, you got to pay taxes. You've got to deal with employee issues. You've got to focus on your own issues. We all have family problems at home. We go through the very same things. We're always constantly thinking, make sure we're making the right decisions about everything. So sitting down, being able to come to the conference table and saying, hey, these are our 3 problems. What are the solutions? Because I'm the kind of person where if we're dealing with a problem, I don't like to sit around and focus on it because I don't have the patience nor the time to deal with the problem. If there's a problem, you freaking fix it.
Yeah, right.
It's just that simple. I don't want to dwell on something from the past or what's been hurting or holding us back. I'd rather have a solution and move forward.
100%.
Now, if that solution can't be carried out, that's a leadership problem.
Yeah.
That's and if it's me, I need to step out of the way and let somebody carry that solution out.
See, these are all the things that you learn in business. I don't think you learn this in the political sphere.
No, it's not. And you can't. And so that's why I say that these term limits, we got to have term limits. I believe in it. I believe that people have served their time. Like I'm running against Jim Cooper in Nashville. God bless his soul. He's a nice guy. He's a very intelligent person. But he's been in Congress 32 years and he's represented Nashville. And I cannot see the benefits of it because there's so many problems that exist there that they have not been solutions. I mean, even going all the way down to his brother, which is our mayor. Yeah. So, so where I'm looking at this thing is common sense, man. This all goes back to common sense because, again, we got to have a balance. My goal is to have a balanced society. Yeah. I know it's almost cliche to hear somebody say that, but that's truly my heart desire because I tell everyone this very thing right here. I'm not running for Congress because I need a job. Yeah. I'm not running for Congress because I need health benefits. Yeah. I'm not running for Congress because, I'm just trying to get popularity and stardom out of this. This is not what this is about. Yeah. I'm doing it because we truly need a change. Everybody needs a voice that represents them, that looks like them. So when they wake up, they look in the mirror in the mornings, I'm representing them. Yeah. They represent me. I want, and that's one of the strong points that I've put into the minority communities. When you think of me, think of your voice. Mm-hmm. I'm talking for you because why? I've been you. I know what it's like. You're hurting without. You got problems with your children. You got problems on your job. I've been there, done it. So God has just placed me in a position now of leadership where through experiences, I'm able to talk and understand you. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have to vote for me. That's why you have to have voices in Congress and in Senate to where people are going to support you and you're going to say what they're feeling. Yeah. And that's what put Trump in office. He was saying things that people that hadn't voted in years, he brought them out.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't. I think this is one of the things that Hillary Clinton especially did wrong, but also that Trump seemed to get right, is that he understood, coming from the business world, that kind of elitist perspective that sometimes politicians have because they haven't really dealt with real people or haven't had to be concerned with employees and understanding that the decisions that they make on a macro and micro level actually affect the well-being of people in a really, really real way. And so when Hillary Clinton's talking about basket of deplorables and then Donald Trump saying things that actually looks like I know politicians can play a good game, but actually looks like he's concerned with people who are struggling, concerned with people who have to bear the weight of decision making that's made from politicians and stuff like that. I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump really got right, and I think that's one of the things that you can borrow from the business world that you can bring into political discussions. So that said, I really do just have to ask you, frankly, you're a successful businessman, awesome story, beautiful family. How many kids you got, by the way?
4.
Yeah, 4. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So no TV at home. How old are your kids?
All the way from 7 to 14.
Okay, cool.
So
cool. I've got a 7-year-old too. All right, so you got all that stuff going for you, and then you just go and totally screw it all up by running for a political
Oh my
office. What
gosh.
is wrong with you?
I know, man. I tell you, my son, he asked me the other day. He said, "Dad," he said, "do you really want to do this?" He was like, "Because people talk about you and stuff like that." And I'm like, "Well, they talked about Jesus too. What you gonna do about it?"
Yeah.
I mean, listen, and that's what I'm saying. If you Trump proved a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry I keep referencing him. It's not that he proved a lot in this country during his election cycle.
Yeah, he's
He
one. I mean,
proved a lot.
let's just speak about that objectively. He is one of the few people who doesn't come from a deep state political kind of frame of reference as a president, and everybody else is going through the ranks of political office.
Yeah,
and so Trump is different, regardless of if you like him or dislike him.
Yeah, regardless. And I don't like everything that he did.
Yeah.
By far. I figure I figure like his right age should have been like, give me your cell phone.
Yeah.
Stay off the laptop. Yes. Get off the computer. We got a country to go.
That probably ain't happening. He's probably got one under the pillow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of things that he didn't, and he could have addressed and done things a little differently, but he didn't. But bottom line is he still proved that being yourself, being authentic, being a voice of the people, and protecting this country, that's what people want. That's what they want to know. And people that are just in this for the show, because I've noticed there are a lot of candidates out in this country looking to get Trump's endorsement. Why can't you just get the people's endorsement?
Yeah.
If Trump endorses me, great. But I'm not running them down. I'm not trying to go to his events and be seen just to get his endorsement. No, because the people is what put you in office.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about, Tennessee. That's where my concern is, because I was born and raised here. I've seen it go from a little dot on the map to where places like Nashville and the outlines here of Chattanooga and things like that are growing.
Yeah.
Because we're pulling in all sorts of people. And that's where we as citizens, local citizens, have to question everybody that's moving into this state that wants to run for office. We have to question their motives, because if you don't understand the people here, how can you understand politics?
Yeah.
And you can't just come into, because I was in a conversation with a very high legislative person, and we were discussing the same issue right now. And one of the biggest things was that if a person couldn't make a difference from where they come from, but then all of a sudden want to come into Tennessee and start running for public office and acting like you're the best thing since sliced bread and you're going to make a difference, but you couldn't make a difference in your own hometown, there's a problem there. What are you running from? So Tennesseans are real, man.
Yeah.
We're volunteers for a reason.
Yeah.
And we are just very authentic people. You take it or leave it.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Okay, so let me ask this real quick, because what does the district look like? Because you're pretty purple, right?
Oh yeah.
If not blue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's all the way. It's a D9.
Okay.
It's considered a D9. So about 60 something, high 60% Democratic.
Okay.
It's been over 60 to 70 years since a Republican has won in Nashville.
Wow.
Hence, that's why it's a blue city. Every time a Republican has ran against in this area to become Congress, they've not been successful. And I can tell you one reason why. Everyone knows, and it's similar to what our previous conversation was before we started talking, was you have to know the people in the area. And majority of the cities like Nashville and Chattanooga, the inner core cities, they're all Democratic.
Yep.
And we know that the minority votes is what people can count on to get them in, especially on the Democratic ticket. Well, we haven't done a good job as conservatives to go after the minority vote.
Yeah.
And that's my priority, is to actually go after the minority vote, because it's so crucial that I let them realize and see their roots all over again. Start teaching and showing the traditional values that our mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers taught us of. This is why things were a lot different We can do away with a whole lot of problems if we get back to some traditional values.
Yeah. There's this, I don't know, you've probably heard this too, and forgive me, I'm just going to go off the cuff here
That's
and off
all
the
right.
top of my head, but the idea that, like, now obviously we don't want to go back to this age, but there was something happening within the family structure of the Black American family pre-civil rights where their household income was greater than it is presently, I think.
No, it was. Let me give you an example with
Yeah.
that. And most people don't even know about this. Have you ever heard of Black Wall Street?
No, actually.
Okay.
I don't think so.
This is in Tulsa, in Norman, Oklahoma. Over 660 Black-owned businesses were in one area where the black dollar was circulating within its own vicinities. Within the businesses they had their own airports, they had their own doctor's offices, attorneys, hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. And out of that 660 businesses Black owned, 131 of them were women owned
Wow.
businesses, whether they were seamstress, whether they were doctors, whatever. But because the Democrats back then were missing out on that consumer dollar, they burned it down and blamed it on the Republicans.
Wow.
It's some big history there. And that's why recreating the Black wealth portion of this piece, and I'm not trying to take it down this road here on this conversation, but it's important that I be a voice for that.
Yeah.
And understand, to show people this is how we were. Because back then, and this is still true today, I believe, and I'm in the finance tech world, so I see the money coming and going. I believe that if Black America is doing well, America does well. And the reason why I say that is because African Americans are the number one spending culture on the driven market. They're number one.
Okay.
Now, do we save? No. Problems of saving.
Yeah.
But we're quick to spend.
Yeah.
And so these types of things, these stats that are out there, people don't talk about them enough.
Yeah.
They don't make them aware enough. So my job is to go into a place like Nashville and flip this blue to red based on facts, not on emotions. I'm not selling wolf tickets to, get people all emotionally involved in stuff.
To lose voice.
Yeah, I don't have, because I'm not trying to get in Congress to have a job. I'm
Yeah.
doing well for myself. I don't need Congress money.
Yeah.
So that's just how I look at this whole piece, man. So that's part of my agenda. It's just to teach facts, not just in Nashville, but let it be abroad around this whole country that, hey, we got a model campaign here. We got a model congressman here that knows what the heck they're talking about because of facts.
Yeah. All right. So that being said, obviously people can go to your website and they can check out some of the things that you're running on, but let's talk about some of those facts, some of those things that you think are either one, important to the Black community or the minority community that you're trying to reach, or just those big ticket items that you think are really, really important for people who are going to be voting for you to know that these are the things that you're going to try to accomplish and that these are the things that you support. So what are kind of those big ideas that you're running on that are important to you?
Well, children and our education, there are a lot of policies and bills that are reflecting and that are touching a lot of the children, our children departments and our education units across this country that are truly affecting things. And I want to focus there first because, and also along with our economy, to make sure that Small Business America is moving forward.
Yeah.
Because without Small Business America, we don't move forward.
Right.
And so between our small businesses and supporting them and making sure that they have every single resource they need, to our education system, making sure that we become better, our stats become better, that we're not following China and every other country in education, because right now our numbers do not look good compared to the rest of the world when it comes to education. More and more people I've noticed in education, are not having a desire to move forward with college and things of that nature. People just wants to make the quick dollar and think, oh, I got it. I'm going to make $1 million by the time I'm 24. And if I hear that word again, one more time in my life, I'm going to go nuts.
Hey, man, as long as they get a TikTok account, they're going to be famous, bro.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this because Education is a big ticket item for a lot of people right now, predominantly because of conversations about critical race theory, but then also because people, the moment you say critical race theory, people are like, ha, ha, ha. But it's also beyond that. It's also comprehensive sex education. I can only say this: if you don't think this is a big issue, then you just don't know what you're talking about. Because the moment you start to see some of the things that our kids are being subjected to, you actually see, like the sex education books that were being promulgated in Loudoun County. When you see that stuff, like fellatio on a brother and sister, and stuff like that, and it's just like, maybe it fits well in Tennessee, but anyway, I'm just joking. But when you see that stuff, you realize, okay, this is a big issue.
Yeah.
So our governor has already signed a bill about critical race theory. But just to kind of push a little bit further into that issue, just to see what you think about this, the reality is that there is no critical race theory class in elementary school, middle school, or high school. But the reality is that they are pushing books that espouse the ideas of critical race theory. I would almost even say that if you're not doing it in an underhanded way and your kids know what they're getting into, and quite frankly, they're learning critical race theory so that they can critique it rather than be taught it as a reality, and then say it's history. I would almost say, okay, teach it so they can critique it, but don't teach it and then teach it that as though it's history. But what is your stance about Governor Lee's order being sidestepped and around and still being taught in terms of the books that they endorse, the books that they have in their library, and the books that they're actually encouraging kids to read as required reading?
Sure. Well, I'm a believer in this very simple process right here. You open the door for one thing, that's a gateway for the rest of it to come.
Yep.
And by allowing CRT and its points behind it and its issues behind it, that's opening the door for not only things to be taught that shouldn't be taught at schools, but then it also opens the door for things to be accepted of Charlie meet Charlie, and Eve meet Steve, and Steve is actually Eve. And I mean, it just opens the door for a lot of confusing things that God did not design.
Or at least things that should be taught in the home.
Correct. Like for example, things that we talk about at home. I teach my children how to balance a checkbook. These basic things, these basic fundamentals, we've, as parents, as people, we've got to get back to the basic fundamentals of teaching these, having these dinner time table talks, or instead of putting down, jumping on Xbox and playing, show me how to balance a checkbook. Show me how to tell me about what's your thought on this critical race theory stuff, because kids are, believe it or not, they're discussing it now.
100%.
Because it's part of their. Some of these schools have made it a part of their curriculum. To what our point here. So I believe that our governor and Governor Lee and I are good friends, but I believe that I want to make sure that he is, as he's representing Tennessee, we are a conservative state, and we want Tennessee to stay conservative. So by not allowing under the table ideologies and backdoor things to coming into our education system and into our libraries around this state, we have got to be man and woman enough to say, this is not what I'm going to allow to be occurring in our libraries, because, and if not, I'll just pull my kids out and homeschool them. Now, because that's what we did now. We're homeschooling.
Us too, private school.
And so I'm at that place where we have to hold our government accountable, and at least going back to what I was saying, let's get a solution here, man. And I understand that the governor, and I want a lot of people to understand this, being the governor, you're not just a Republican governor, you're not just a Democratic governor, you're the governor of the people.
That's right.
Okay, so understand that that's a very difficult job to do, because you're gonna upset somebody along the way. You're gonna not make everybody happy, right? But you're gonna have to do what's best for our state and for our children's future. And that's what we have to keep in mind. So I hope and I pray to God that Governor Lee will put his foot down a little bit more and not allow things past our shoulders here. Even concerning this mask mandate, I just think it's the most ridiculous thing. I don't disrespect people if they choose to wear a mask.
Choice, yeah.
That's their choice. It's their liberty. It's their right. But I don't think we as people should disrespect them in public if they are wearing a mask. That's their business.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want it mandated. And then even as a business owner, for me, I'm not going to mandate and require my employees to all come in and you got to be masked or having a shot. No, man, listen, we are all grown people here. If you want to go get your shot, you go get it.
Yeah.
That's on you.
Yeah. See, that's the conversation that we should be having rather than like the merits of a mandate, is that like we need to like step back a couple of steps and realize common sense is dead when the government tells us what to do. Like, because now we're taking away the right of people to think for themselves, which is never the government's job.
No.
So no wonder common sense is like one of the commodities that is dying in the streets. Like, we've got even the most educated people on the planet who have zero wisdom whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's all because, like, as the government gets bigger, common sense dies more.
Yeah. And I will say this too, and I want to drop this in. Our pastors of all our churches,
I'm glad you're saying something about that.
they have got to stand up.
Yeah.
They have got to stand up for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what they feel if they're going to lose. They may lose some of their membership. They may lose some of their tithing.
Yeah.
But guess what? You stand on God. That's what I need them to do.
Yeah.
Because people say that church and state should be separate, but the Bible says you give Caesar what's Caesar's.
That's right.
And give God what's God's. You can't. The two go together, man.
Mm-hmm.
Our founding fathers created this country on biblical principles.
100%.
So I'm a believer. Like pastors like Greg Locke in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He's a fire and brimstone preacher, man.
Yeah.
And some people love him. Some people are like, But guess what? That man is standing on some truth, and I love the fact that he's actually standing.
Stand, yeah.
He's taking a stand on principles. It's biblical principles. Just do the right thing here, man. And that's why when you see things like that, and I'm not putting him on a pedestal or anything. It's just I'm using him as an example.
Right, absolutely.
Because he started with a small number of people, and now he's flowing out of the doors on Sunday morning, man, because people are tired. They're wanting to put their hope in God completely, man, and instead of on the government.
Yep.
So I'm just using him as an example because I want people to understand that we as people and then these pastors out here, they've got to say, you know what, we don't need your government money.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell us, come in our church doors and tell us what to do. If you want to take away our 501c3 status, go right ahead. God will supply.
I always say this. I think the best cure for bad ideas are good ideas, and there's no better idea than those found in Scripture. So
I like it.
You need to add to your vocabulary the name Frank Ramseur, too, by the way, who is the pastor of Calvary Chapel here in Chattanooga, because he's been a really a powerful advocate for people at this time too, with mask mandates and with the vaccine mandates, and then also the closing down of churches and stuff like that. He started, and he was just like, okay, now we're done.
Yeah,
we're gonna open this church up. People need the church, and it's never happening again. So anyway, I'd love to connect you with him because he's a solid dude.
That'd be great. Yeah, because I think shutting down these churches and shutting down our states, that was the worst thing that we could have done, and that's why. And I think this was all part of the Democratic plan, was to shut down America, so the control will be infiltrated into our communities.
Yeah,
our control is back totally depending on the government, and that's why people don't want to work now.
And you're not even that's not even conspiracy theory.
No.
That's straight from the mouth of babes, man, or straight from the source, because it was Rahm Emanuel and Hillary Clinton themselves who said, "You never let a good crisis go to waste." And I cannot help but just hear those words echo in my head with everything that we're seeing right now, with everything that's going with COVID and then climate change stuff. Is that getting people emotional helps them stop thinking for themselves and then rely upon other people and looking to the government for solutions. So I think having a common sense conservative running in the 5th district, I think is going to be a huge deal. So I'm really excited that you're doing that. So I want to give you the opportunity to say anything else you want to say, but then also would you let people know how they can follow you either on social media and then also where your website is so people can stay up to date?
So you can definitely find me on the web at quincyforcongress.com. It's my name, 4, just not the number 4, but FOR,
Yeah.
Congress.com.
And I'll put that down in the description for the show.
Yeah, you can definitely go there and read a little bit more if you want to, and donate. As far as social media is concerned, I am on Facebook. You can go to Quincy for Congress or Quincy McKnight. I tell everybody we don't need to be voting on people based on how many followers they got.
Yeah.
We should boast on people
Yeah.
and where they stand with issues. So you'll see that on my social media, I share my life. I share my business, and the people I meet, the conversations I have. I share those things because I want people to see the real thing, and know what you get what you vote for.
Yeah.
But definitely that. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll put that all down in the description below. I thank you for your honesty. I thank you for your bravery, and I thank you for being nuts enough to want to get into the political realm with everything else you got going on. So, thank you, man, and I wish you the best moving forward.
thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everybody.
Our thanks again to our guests for being on the show today. Indie Thinker with Reed Uberman was brought to you by our sponsors. If you like what you heard today, please do us a big favor and give it a 5-star review and like it and share it with friends. And if you want to hear more awesome guests, make sure to check out past episodes. Indie Thinker is a nonprofit paid for by our sponsors and the generous gifts of people like you. In order to hear more great guests like you did today, please consider giving a tax-deductible gift by going to indiethinker.org. And just remember, your voice matters, but infinitely more when you think for yourself.